You ever notice how easy it is to unload your problems on someone else? It feels good in the moment, like a quick release, but have you ever stopped to wonder what happens after? The truth is, telling people your problems doesn't always bring the relief you think it will. In fact, most of the time, it does the opposite. It drains your energy, weakens your confidence, and sometimes even pushes people away. That's why learning when to stay silent and keep your struggles to yourself can completely change the way people see you and the way you see yourself. Let me give you 5 reasons why you should stop telling people your problems. When you constantly talk about your problems, you may not even realize what you are doing to yourself. Every time you retell the story, you relive the emotions tied to it. You reopen the wound, you replay the disappointment, and you strengthen the pain instead of loosening its grip on you. The mind doesn't know the difference between what happened yesterday and what you are repeating today. So when you keep bringing up the same issue, your body and your emotions experience it as if it is happening all over again. This is why you can feel drained, heavy, and stuck, because instead of moving forward, you are rehearsing the past. Think of it like this. When you keep replaying the same sad song, you can't expect to suddenly feel joyful. The melody shapes your mood. In the same way, the constant repetition of your struggles creates a soundtrack of negativity that follows you around, keeping you in a cycle of stress and frustration. What you give your attention to will always grow, and if your attention is locked on your problems, then your problems will take up more space in your mind and more energy in your life. You also end up training your brain to focus on what is wrong instead of what is possible. Each time you tell the story, you carve a deeper path in your thinking, making it harder for you to see a solution. It is like walking the same trail over and over until it becomes the only road you know. Soon, you don't just have a problem, you have a mindset that keeps you tied to that problem. This is why so many people struggle to find clarity, because their energy is consumed by constantly replaying the pain rather than redirecting it into progress. The more you speak about what hurts, the less energy you have left to actually fix it. Another thing to recognize is how this habit affects the people around you. When all someone hears from you is struggle, their view of you changes. They may not say it out loud, but they start to see you as someone weighed down, someone defined by their issues instead of their strengths. And when people begin to view you through the lens of your problems, they don't see your potential, your abilities, or your resilience. They see the broken pieces you keep holding up to them. Without knowing it, you are teaching others how to define you. And if the only story you give them is your suffering, that's the image that sticks in their mind. It also weakens your confidence. Each time you retell a problem, you remind yourself that you are stuck, that you are struggling, that you don't have control over the situation. The more you do it, the more you start to believe it, and belief is powerful. If you constantly rehearse weakness, you start to feel weaker. If you constantly rehearse pain, you start to live in pain. Your words become the environment your mind grows in, and if those words are filled with nothing but complaints and struggle, then your mindset becomes a place where solutions cannot grow. When you hold on to your problems and keep voicing them, you may think you are finding relief, but what you are really doing is keeping yourself chained to the very thing you are trying to escape. Instead of giving yourself freedom, you are handing your problems a microphone and letting them echo louder and longer in your life. Every time you speak them, you breathe new life into them, and the cycle continues, keeping you from the peace, the clarity, and the strength you could have if you simply chose not to give them your voice. Not everyone you open up to actually cares about what you are going through, and this is a truth most people realize only after they've shared too much. There is a big difference between someone who listens because they value you and someone who listens because they are curious or entertained by your struggles. The sad reality is that many people you share your problems with aren't looking to help you heal. They are just gathering information. They may nod along, give you a word or two of comfort, but deep down, their intention isn't to support you. It's to know more about your personal life, and that information becomes a kind of power they hold. When you hand out pieces of your struggle to people who don't care, you are giving them a version of yourself that they can use to judge, dismiss, or even gossip about later, and none of that benefits you. When you talk too openly, you also reveal your vulnerabilities to people who don't deserve access to them. Every person doesn't need to know the details of your pain because not every person is safe with that information. The more people know about your inner battles, the more opportunities they have to use it against you, whether directly or indirectly. Even when someone doesn't intentionally harm you with what you've told them, they may unintentionally spread your story, discuss it with others, or twist it in a way that doesn't represent you fairly. In the end, you're left exposed, and what was supposed to be your moment of relief turns into a new set of problems caused by oversharing. There's another side to this as well. The more people see you as someone who constantly unloads problems, the less they respect you. Respect is built on strength, composure, and the ability to manage yourself even in hard times. But when people notice that you constantly run to them with every difficulty, they stop viewing you as someone strong. Instead, they start to think of you as someone who cannot handle life without leaning heavily on others. Over time, their respect for you fades, and it is replaced by a kind of pity or even annoyance. No one wants to admit it, but when someone repeatedly brings problems without bringing solutions, people pull away and they stop valuing that person's presence as much as before. Another thing to think about is that the people who don't really care about your struggles might still act like they do in the moment. They may nod their heads, give the impression they are listening, maybe even offer a piece of advice, but once the conversation ends, your problems don't stay with them. They forget, they move on, and you're left feeling the same weight as before, except now it feels heavier because you realize you didn't gain any real support. That false sense of comfort is dangerous because it makes you believe you're sharing with someone trustworthy when in reality, you're pouring your heart out into an empty cup. It also impacts the way you see yourself. When people stop respecting you because you overshare, you begin to notice the subtle changes in their behavior. They may stop reaching out as often, stop including you in certain conversations, or even avoid you altogether because in their eyes you've become a source of negativity instead of strength. And when you sense that shift, your self-esteem takes a hit. You start questioning yourself, wondering why people are distant, when in truth, it's because you gave away too much of your personal battles to people who never valued them in the first place. The harsh lesson here is that your problems are not meant for public consumption. Not everyone deserves front row access to your pain, and not everyone will treat your struggles with the care they deserve. The more you share with those who don't genuinely care, the more you chip away at the respect others have for you, and instead of being remembered for your strength, you become remembered for your struggles. When you constantly talk about your struggles, you may think you are being open and honest, but what others often see is someone who cannot handle life without leaning on others. This creates an image of dependency, and dependency rarely inspires admiration. People naturally gravitate toward those who carry themselves with composure, even in difficult times. They respect those who can go through storms without broadcasting every drop of rain that falls on them. When you choose to constantly voice your hardships, you unintentionally send the message that you are not capable of managing them on your own. Over time, that message weakens the way people perceive your strength, and instead of seeing you as resilient, they start to see you as fragile. Strength isn't about never struggling, it's about how you respond to the struggle. And the truth is, when you keep your challenges private and work on them quietly, people notice that silence. They notice the way you keep moving forward without making your pain the center of attention. They notice how you handle yourself when life gets hard, and that quiet resilience is what makes others admire you. It's not that you're hiding your struggles, it's that you're not letting them define you in the eyes of others. When someone sees that you can walk through fire without screaming for everyone's attention, they assume you have an inner strength that sets you apart. On the other hand, when you constantly verbalize your hardships, it drains the respect people feel toward you. They may begin to avoid conversations with you because they expect negativity, or they may stop taking you seriously because every interaction feels like another complaint. The more you talk about being stuck, the more they believe you are stuck. And even if you are capable of overcoming your challenges, your words paint a picture that says otherwise. People rarely admire someone who always speaks of their problems, but they deeply respect the one who chooses to face those problems quietly and rise above them. Another side of this is the impression it leaves on your relationships, both personal and professional. In friendships, when you repeatedly share struggles, friends might start to feel like you are leaning too heavily on them without bringing any positivity back. In professional settings, talking about your difficulties can make colleagues or superiors question whether you can handle responsibility. Even when you think you are just venting, others may interpret it as a lack of control or composure, and that perception can close doors of opportunity that would otherwise be open to you. People are drawn to those who can carry weight without making it everyone else's burden, and that's a quiet strength that earns lasting respect. There's also a psychological aspect to this. When you rely too much on others to carry your struggles through listening, you develop a habit of dependency. You begin to condition yourself to feel relief only when someone else hears you out. That takes away your own sense of empowerment because instead of finding strength within yourself, you are borrowing strength from the attention of others. Over time, this weakens your confidence and makes you feel incapable of facing challenges without an audience. And when people sense that dependency, they pull back because no one wants to feel responsible for holding up another person's emotional world day after day. True respect is built not on words, but on actions. People respect the one who chooses discipline over drama, composure over constant complaints, solutions over stories. When you deal with your struggles quietly, when you find ways to handle them without making them the centerpiece of every conversation, you create an aura of strength that speaks louder than anything you could ever say. That silent strength becomes your reputation, and it leaves an impression that people don't forget. When you open up too much about your struggles, you expose yourself to unnecessary judgment, gossip, and misunderstanding that can easily make your situation worse than it already is. People don't always process what you tell them the way you mean it, and once your words leave your mouth, you have no control over how they will be interpreted, repeated, or twisted. You might think you are sharing in confidence, but the truth is, very few people keep everything to themselves. The details of your life can quickly become the topic of conversation in rooms you are not in, and once your personal battles become public discussion, you lose the dignity of privacy and the freedom of controlling your own story. What was once your moment of venting now becomes a narrative that others own, and they will not always portray you fairly. People have a tendency to judge what they don't understand. When you share the depths of your struggles, you may be expecting empathy, but instead you receive silent judgment. Some will see your openness as weakness, others will assume you are unstable, and some may even use your vulnerability to feel superior. It's not that everyone is malicious, but human nature often leans toward comparison, and when someone knows your weaknesses, it can make them feel stronger about themselves. This shift in perception changes the way they look at you, and even if they don't say it outright, their respect for you begins to fade because they now define you by your problems rather than your strengths. Another danger of oversharing is gossip. The more details you give people about your problems, the more material they have to discuss with others. Even people who genuinely like you may end up talking about your situation with someone else, and by the time your story travels through multiple people, it no longer sounds like the story you told. Pieces are added, details are exaggerated, and soon your private struggle becomes a distorted tale that paints you in a way you never intended. This gossip can spread in circles you don't even know about, and you are left dealing with the weight of rumors on top of the weight of your actual problem. Misunderstanding is another layer to consider. You might explain your situation in a way that makes sense to you, but the listener may not grasp the full context, leading them to form opinions or judgments that are completely off. They may assume you are overreacting, being dramatic, or unable to take responsibility, when in reality they simply don't understand the full picture. And once that misunderstanding forms in their mind, it becomes very difficult to change. People rarely update their first impression of you. So if that impression is tied to your problems, you will be seen through a distorted lens no matter how much you grow or overcome later. Oversharing can also close doors without you realizing it. In workplaces, if you talk too much about personal struggles, people may begin to question your reliability or emotional stability. In friendships, too much vulnerability at the wrong time can overwhelm others, making them feel like they have to carry a burden they never asked for. Even in family relationships, constant sharing can create tension because not everyone is equipped to handle the weight of your pain. What begins as an attempt to feel supported can end up creating distance as people protect themselves from being pulled into problems that are not theirs to solve. When you share too freely, you lose control of your own narrative. Your life becomes an open book that others feel free to read, discuss, and interpret in ways you never intended. This not only multiplies your problems, but also takes away the peace of knowing that your struggles are yours alone to work through. By allowing judgment, gossip, and misunderstanding to creep in, you unintentionally add more weight to what you are already carrying, making the journey harder than it needs to be. The strongest people are not the ones who make the most noise about their difficulties, but the ones who face them quietly and focus on solutions rather than broadcasting their struggles. There is something deeply powerful about a person who goes through hard times without feeling the need to constantly explain themselves to everyone around them. Their silence is not weakness, it is discipline. It is the choice to protect their energy and direct it towards solving the problem instead of wasting it by repeating the problem to everyone who will listen. When you stop giving your struggles a stage, you stop feeding them with unnecessary attention, and that allows you to redirect your focus toward action, growth, and recovery. This habit of keeping your challenges private builds an inner strength that others can sense. People notice how you carry yourself when life is not easy. They may not know the details of what you are going through, but they see your ability to keep moving forward without making excuses or drawing attention to your pain. That quiet resilience creates a kind of respect that words alone cannot earn. It tells people you are capable, disciplined, and in control, even when circumstances are not in your favor. And that image inspires trust, because if you can handle your own struggles without broadcasting them, people believe you can be trusted with responsibility, leadership, and support for others. Another thing that happens when you focus on solutions instead of sharing problems is that you create momentum for yourself. Talking about problems keeps you stuck in the cycle of revisiting what went wrong, but looking for solutions pushes you forward. Instead of asking why something happened to you, you begin asking what you can do about it, and that simple shift changes everything. It moves you from victim mode to problem solver mode, and that mindset is the difference between staying stuck in the same place and building a path out of it. Every action you take, no matter how small, builds confidence, and that confidence grows into the kind of strength that people around you can see and respect. Focusing on solutions also protects your relationships. When you handle your challenges privately and show up to others with composure, you are not seen as a burden. You are seen as someone reliable, someone others can count on. Instead of draining energy from those around you, you contribute stability, and that makes people want to be near you. They admire your ability to keep your world together without demanding that they hold it up for you. Over time, this builds stronger bonds because respect and admiration replace pity and frustration. People are naturally drawn to those who demonstrate quiet strength, and they are more likely to open doors of opportunity, offer support, and trust you with their own vulnerabilities. There is also a deeper layer to this. When you choose not to broadcast your struggles, you teach yourself self-reliance. You learn that your strength does not come from validation or sympathy, but from your own ability to face what life throws at you. That kind of self-reliance creates lasting confidence because you no longer depend on external approval to feel strong. You become grounded, centered, and more capable of handling whatever comes your way. And while you are building that inner strength, others are watching, noticing, and quietly respecting the way you handle your life. They may not know the battles you are fighting, but they know you are fighting them with dignity, and that is what makes them admire and trust you even more.